Okay, so for chapter 4, um, the chapter 4 is all about loops, right? Or the for loops or while loop. And you should able to trace, right? Uh, both while and for loop, right? So for example, oh, by the way, you should also know how to using a loop, right? Either for loop or while loop, you should know how to write a code to calculate the sum, average, maximum, or minimum, right? So this is all of them is are in my video lecture, right? And sum, average, max, and mean. Okay, so let's just trace down this loop, right? So first I use the while loop. So first I is equal to 3, right? So first I is equal to 3 while I is less than or equal to 10. Then it's going to print loop, right? It's going to print loop. And then I is equal to I plus 1, right? There is an indentation. So I is equal to 3, right? So let's see. Okay, so first the variable that you have to monitor is I, and then yeah, in this loop is I. So this is the loop. This two statement will be executed, right? As long as this condition is true. So let's just first trace this down. So initially I is equal to 3, right? Initially I is equal to 3. Okay, so this is loop number 1, loop number 2, and loop number 3, and etc. So at the loop number 3, I is a 3, right? So 3 is less than 10. 3 is less than 10, right? So this is true. So it's going to print loop. And then I is going to be increment by 1, right? So 3 plus 1 is 4. So at this point, at the loop number 1, this is loop number 1, I is 3 plus 1, so 4, right? So go to the while loop. And the 4 is less than 10. I is less than 10, yes. So it's going to print loop. So actually, previously it's going to print loop, right? And then it's going to print loop. Then I will be increment by 1. So I becomes 5, right? And then go to the while loop. Is that 5 is less than 10? Yes. So it's going to go inside the loop and execute this print function. So it's going to print loop. And then I is going to be incremented by 1, right? So 6. So etc. So we don't have to really go through all of them. So we can make a guess, right? So we can make an intelligent guess. 7, so I is going to be 7, 8. So you know that this is a 10, right? So 9. When I becomes 9, 9 is less than 10. So it's going to be execute this loop. So it's going to print loop, right? And then, okay. Then, so next is the loop number 7. Loop number 7. So 9 is less than 10, which is true. So it's going to print loop. And then I is going to be increment by 1. So I becomes 10, right? Done with the last statement. So go to the loop. Is that 10 less than 10? So no. So this becomes false. And that's the end of the while loop, right? So the problem asks you basically How many times does the code snippet given below display loop execution? How many times? So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So answer is 7 times, right? So now let's take a look at the next problem. What is the output of this loop? So we have a for loop. So the counter is 1. So I'll just say C is equal to 1. So counter is equal to 1. So right now I'm looking at the next problem. And then for I in range 2, 5, right? And then there's indentation. And then C, the counter is equal to count plus 1. And at the end, you have to, once the loop is done, then you have to say print C. You would like to print C, right? First, for loop. The range function is frequently used with the for loop. So the range, let's first take a look at the range function. The range function, right? You're always starting with this number. So, the range function is going to return a list starting from this number 2 and then increment by 1, 3, 4, right? And then the last one is 1 less than the this value. So basically 5 minus 1 is a 4. So last value is going to be 4, okay? Not 5. So the I, right? I, the loop number 1. So let's say loop number 1, loop number 2, and etc. Right? Loop number 1, I is gonna be 2. So we have to monitor 2 variables, I and C, right? So the C. So I is first is a 2, right? So I is a 2. And then C is initially 1, right? So the 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. The C becomes 2. And I'm done, right? Because there's only one statement inside the for loop. So go to the for loop. And now I becomes 3, loop number 2, right? And then C is a 2, right? So 2 plus 1 is 3. So C becomes 3. And then done, right? And then go to the while loop, for loop. And now I becomes 4, right? So the I becomes 4, sorry. So I becomes 4. So this is loop number 3. So I becomes 4, right? And then C is increment by 1. So the C is increment by 1. So and done, right? So then if you print C, the C, it should print 4. So the answer is 4. Okay? Okay. So now let's take a look at the last problem. Last problem said how many times will the loop, following loop run, right? How many times? So how many times? So let me just write down the problem. I is initially 0, and then while I is less than or equal to 10, and there's indentation, right? There's indentation, and then print I, and then I is equal to I plus 1, right? That's the problem. So how many times? So let's just follow. So first, obviously, we have to monitor I, right? And I think this problem, it's same as the first problem. So I'll just make this problem is very similar to the first one. So I'll just make the change. Instead of this, What about if I just say, instead of this, I'll just say while, so initially I is equal to 0, while, let's say I is not equal to, let's say, 4, right? So this means not equal, right? And then, let's say, print, let's just make it 6. When I is not equal to 6, so this means not equal. But this means equal sign, right? This means equal sign, and this means not equal, right? So there's an indentation. So you're going to print I, right? And then this time, the I will be increment by 2. I is equal to I plus 2. So let's just run this. So how many times? How many times this loop is going to run? I mean, so let's just find out. Find out how many times this loop is going to run or execute. So so let's just make a table. First we have to watch. Basically, there's only one variable that we need to monitor. Only one variable that we need to watch out, which is I. So there's I. And the loop number 1, right? So I is 0 initially. The 0 is not equal to 6, which is true. So it's going to print I. So it's going to print 0. It's going to print 0, right? And then I value is increment by 2. So 0 plus 2 is a 2. So I now is a 2, right? And next loop. Loop number 2. So go to the while loop. I is not equal to 6. Is it true? So since I is a 2, 2 is not equal to 6. So this is true. And then it's going to print I. So it's going to print I, which is 2. So it's going to print 2. Right? So this is print. And then I is what? I is increment by 2. Right? So 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So this becomes 4, right? Done. And then go to the while loop. And I is, the 4 is not equal to 6. Yes, it's not equal to 6. So it's going to print I, which is print 4. So this is loop number 3 right now. And then I is going to be increment by 2. So I becomes 6, right? Then done, and go to the while loop. Is that 6 is not equal to 6? Right, so this statement, right, basically becomes false because this is not equal, right? So this statement becomes false, and that's the end of the while loop. So how many runs? 1, 2, 3, right? Okay, so I'm going to change the previous problem to this one. Okay, not equal. Okay, so let me just stop here.